Hello everyone and welcome. I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Yasin and today I'll be showing you how to use one of our 3D printing resource and also designing a Formula One race car using that resource. So let's get started. First thing you want to do is go to our website, go under services and select 3D printing. So once you select the 3D printing, it will take you to our 3D printing service section, and everything you need to know about our 3D printing services are housed here. So there's also a cost associated with printing material, 3D printing materials, and it's right here. Also, if you scroll down, submitting a 3D print request, this is the 3D print agreement. Make sure you read that. And some resources that you can learn from, learning resources located right here. Printable models from the web. Thingiverse is a good one. And last but not least, 3D design tools and lessons. I will be using Tinkercad specifically. So let's get started with that. Once you select Tinkercad, it'll take you to their website. And you could create an account. If you do not have an account, you can just go to Join Now. Once you select that, it'll ask you how you have different options on how you would like to create an account. I'll just use the create personal account. Based on your age, it's gonna ask you to get somebody to sign off on you. So if I believe if you're over 11, you're fine. Under 11, then you would need a parent permission or something like that. But once you create your account, you will go to your profile and it will look just like this. Now, if you're new to Tinkercad, I would advise you to go to the lesson section, which will help you out to learn how to manipulate the work plane and learn different moves as far as aligning, scale, creating holes, and just, moving, getting comfortable with moving the board and the angles. So this would be a good place to start for new beginners. It's very simple and it's very easy to use. So I'd advise you to go there. So once you've learned that, you will go to create new design. And once you get to the new design, you will see the work plane. This is the exact replica of a work plane for the MakerBot 3D printer. So anything you put on the work plane, make sure it fits, because if it does not, then it won't print on the actual 3D printer. So this is the exact replica of the work plane. Okay, so now let's start creating and designing our race car. First thing you will need is a box and a pyramid. All the shapes are on your right, so put my pyramid in my box. This is for the body of the race car. Now all the measurements are by millimeters. You could always change it to inches if you want, but it's default by millimeters. Millimeters, excuse me. So I'm going to change the size. You can actually punch in and just type it in instead of trying to stretch it out and measure it out. It's more simple for me to do that as far as putting the numbers in. So I'm just going to put the numbers in. The width is going to be 30 millimeters and the length is going to be 25, and the height of the pyramid will be 75. And if you notice on the pyramid, there's like a cone up top, like a black cone. That is a feature that you can hold and drag up to raise the actual shape off the work plane. And we're going to be using that soon. Also under it, you have a semicircle that is to do different angles, degrees of angle. And then at the bottom has the same to rotate it different way you want. So I'm just making sure I have the right numbers in. Okay, so it's looking good, so I'm gonna place it over here. Okay, so for the box, the width will be 60, the length will be 25, and the height will be 15. So I'm gonna put 25 right there, and that's gonna be 15. And I think that's good. Okay, place it right here and place this right here. Now we're gonna rotate the pyramid to a 90-degree angle, and you can also punch it in. Now that black cone I was saying, we're gonna raise it down. We want just half of the pyramid on the work plane. So remember, like I said, anything that's not on the work plane, the print will not recognize it to print out because it's showing that it's to the computer, it's showing that it's not on it. So we want the pyramid to be half in on the work plane. So when the actual 3D printer is printing, it's only going to print whatever is on the work plane. Now I'm going to try to put my shapes together and align them, make sure they're aligned the right way. I'm going to zoom in and see. You can really zoom in and make sure that they're touching and they're together, as you can see. I'm just double checking my two shapes, making sure they're touching and they're not overlapping each other, because sometimes that could happen and you might not able to notice it. So you have to zoom in. If you're using a mouse, you would just use the scroll button on that. And if you're using a keypad, a mouse pad, trackpad, you would have to use your two fingers like a pinch motion. As you can see, the red is overlapping the yellow, so that means they're not, one is overlapping another one, so that means it's not aligned correctly. Okay, now it's looking perfect. Okay, and that's how we want it. Okay, now that's done. We need another box, and that box we're gonna use to create a shape from the pyramid, or to manipulate the pyramid to get a type of shape that we want. But we're going to turn the box into a hole. So anytime you turn a shape into a hole, whatever that shape touches, if you group it together, and we're going to talk about the grouping feature later, whenever you group it together, then that shape takes off whatever it's touching. So it's much easier seen than explained, but here we go. So the box is simply here just to cut off the piece of the pyramid, the nose of the pyramid. We don't want our race car looking like a spear, so we just want to cut the piece of the top of the pyramid. So watch how I do it. You will have to turn the box into a hole first. Sometimes you could turn it before, but it's easier once you turn the box into a hole. So I'm gonna select the save and turn it into a hole, and then select the box and the pyramid to group them together. And the group feature is right up top right here. So once you group them together, this is the result that you're going to get. Now the nose of the pyramid is cut off, and also the box, the hole has disappeared. So that's how you manipulate different shapes, by using the holes. Okay, so the next shape is going to be a wedge, and we're going to need 2 wedges, and the size for that will be, the length will be 12 millimeters, and the width of the wedge will be 5 millimeters, and the height will be 10 millimeters. But first we have to rotate it to make sure it's sitting the way we want it to look, because this is going to be a support for our Formula One wings, and you're going to have to raise it off the work plane 12 millimeters. 13 millimeters actually. So there we go. Once we rotate it facing the right way, the right angle, we're going to put our measurements in. Okay. Okay. It's looking like everything is alright. Alright, so let's put in the measurements in. And also we're going to make a duplicate copy and have it facing the opposite way of this first wedge, because we're going to need 2 wedges to support our Formula One race wing. Okay, time to place it up. And like I said earlier, we always want to make sure nothing is overlapping. So you always use the zoom feature to get closer to the shape and make sure that they all fitting correctly. So made a duplicate copy, and we're going to rotate that one. There we go. And what we're trying to do is place them on the red block right at the end without overlapping. So now that we have our wedges up, we could start to create our wings. We're going to use two boxes and we're going to shape them to two different sizes to make our wings that our wedges is going to support. So one of the boxes you're going to have to turn the width into 10 millimeters, the length into 40 millimeters, and the height into 10 millimeters. And the other one will be, the height will be 8 millimeters, the width will be 20 millimeters, and the length will be 36 millimeters. Okay, looks like our measurements are a little, okay, let's see. Okay, let's get our next shape, our next box, and change the measurements on that. Raise that up 2 millimeters off the work plane. Okay, just double check on that. Change that to 36. Okay, looks good. Yep, all the numbers look good. I'm just going to change it to a different color just so it doesn't get confusing to what shape is what and what are we using it for. Now mind you, when you're actually printing or send your print to the library, just keep in mind that it's usually one solid color. I know Tinkercad has a lot of options to choose colors and everything like that, so you have to request the color that you want. So we're going to put this together and we're going to make sure they align correctly, and we're going to turn the green box into a hole so we can manipulate the other box to get our wings. So now I've selected it, see the alignment feature right there. Those black circles are, you could go over them and see if they align. As you can see, it'll show you if this aligned, and if it's not, you select right there, want it in the middle, so that way it's right in there. We're going to turn our green box into a hole. Select both shapes, turn our green box into a hole, and have the shape that we're looking for our wings. And you can always go back if you make a mistake, just like I just did right there. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now we have turned the green box into a hole. We're gonna group it together and voila, here we go. We have our wing, and we're gonna need two wings. So we're gonna duplicate the same wing, but one size is gonna be bigger than the other. And the size that we're gonna change, the wing is gonna be raised up 22 millimeters, and the width of it will be 12 millimeters. I'll raise it up to 22, and then we're gonna stretch it out. Stretch it out a little bit to 12. There we go. Perfect. So after we have created our wings, we're going to place them on our vehicle. So this will be the top wing that's going to go on top of the wedges that we created earlier. And the other wing will be the bottom wing, the front wings. So the back wing and the front wing. Of course, you have to make sure you aligned. Everything is aligned. And the way to do it is you will select and use the align tool, which is located on your right. Remember, with the black dots, and you could kind of see how it's going to look before you select it, so you can make sure that everything is aligned and looks right. Okay, so it's looking more like a car now. Okay, got to make some small adjustments, make sure we align it perfectly. We don't want no draft. Alright, so we're going to align the top wing and we're going to align the bottom wing. So once we are satisfied with our alignment, what we're going to do is group the whole entire shape. As for now, we never grouped anything. So all the shapes that we put together can be removed. But once you group the shape, everything will move as one solid shape, which is important. So we're going to do that, and then you group it. And as you group it, it turns to one solid color. So now I could move the whole unit by itself without worrying about trying to put the pieces together. So now we have our bottom wing, our front wing, and we're gonna also do the same thing, align it with the car and make sure it's aligned correctly by selecting the whole shape. Okay, looking good, looking good. All right, it's looking more like a race car now. We have our back wings, we have our front wings, looking good. So now that we have our car looking the way we want it to look, it's time for more shapes. So this time we're going to use some shapes to create our exhaust. And we're going to need two of them. And the measurements for those two, the small one will be 15 millimeters width and length, and the height will be 12 millimeters. And for the other one will be 15 millimeters width and length, and the height will be 40 millimeters. After we have placed both our measurements, we're gonna rotate the bigger cone to a 90-degree angle, and you could always type it in. So the small cone will be the hole, because we're gonna make a hole into the exhaust to put on the car, and we're gonna need 3 of them. So it's gonna be one on the left, one on the right, and one on the top of the car. And all we're gonna do is, once we get our first exhaust together, we're just gonna duplicate 2 more and place them in the right location. So once we create our hole for the exhaust, we're gonna align it, make sure everything looks right, and of course, like we've been doing, we're gonna select it and group it so we can have the hole. And like I said earlier, we're gonna make 2 more copies of those so we could put it on the left, the right, and the top. So your end result should look like this. Now that we have our exhaust on our car, it's time to group it and make it as one moving unit. So I'm gonna select it, group it, and of course it's gonna change to one solid color. Now that we have our exhaust in place, we need our driver. So for the driver, we're gonna create a helmet, and we're gonna use half a sphere. Of course, safety is first, so this is gonna be our helmet, and we're gonna place it right up top behind in front of the exhaust, on top of the vehicle. And the size for that will be 10 millimeters width and length. Now that we have our driver in place, we need to make a hole for the wheel axle. So we're gonna select another shape, a cylinder. We're gonna select 2 cylinders, and the sizes for that are gonna be 5 millimeter wide and 50 millimeter long. And we're gonna raise both of them 4 millimeters up from the work plane. And of course, gonna turn it into a 90-degree angle. Make sure we put in our measurements. And once we get the right size, we're gonna make a duplicate copy. There we go. So now we have 2. And as you know, we're gonna turn it into a hole so we could have a hole on our vehicle for our wheels. And of course, it's gonna be one going through the back and one going through the front. Make sure you align them correctly, because this is probably the most important part of this project. Is making sure the wheels are going in the right places, so that way your vehicle come out the right way. Gonna raise it up 4 millimeters. Like I said, one to the front and one to the back. Just make sure they're aligned. And once you align them, you're gonna group them. And the end result, you should have a hole going through both sides of your vehicle. Once you've grouped your car and aligned it with the axles and group it together, make sure it's aligned correctly. Okay, check both angles. Select the whole shape and group it. Now we have holes going through the front and the back of the vehicle, and as you can see, it goes right through. So we're gonna need those two axles again, so we're gonna make another copy of those axles. That's what's gonna hold the wheels. So okay, looking good. We have a driver, our exhaust, our wings. We're looking good. Okay, so now that we brought our axles back, we're gonna put them to the side. Now we need the main thing, which are the wheels. So we're gonna go with another cylinder, and we're gonna need two of them to create our wheel. Actually, three. So for the first cylinder, the measurements are gonna be 30 millimeter height and 55 millimeter width. The second is gonna be 12 millimeter width and 6 millimeter height, and the third one will be 20 millimeter width and 15 millimeter height, and for the third one the length will be 20 as well, 20 millimeters, and for the second one the length will be 12 millimeters as well, width and length. Okay, and the second step will be to raise the one of the cylinders, the second one, to 14 millimeters. Raise it from the work plane 14 millimeters. And you're gonna need another copy of the second cylinder. So the third cylinder is actually going to be our wheel, and everything else that's included in it is we're gonna turn it into a whole to create our wheel. And once we do that, we're gonna make a copy, 3 more copies, so we can have 4 wheels. And make sure we align everything together. We need the right wheels for the ride, so this is very important that the alignment are all correct. There we go. And like I said earlier, all the pieces are turned into a whole except for the third cylinder, because that's how we're going to create our wheel. So now that we've created our wheel, it's time to make duplicate copies so we could have 4. Alright, everything looks good. So what I'm going to do is just make 3 extra copies. So after we've created our wheels, we're going to need one more important thing, which is going to be washers. And that's going to help hold our wheels and axles together. We're going to make a copy. We're going to do it the same way as we did the wheel, but this time we're only going to need 2 cylinders. And one cylinder will be 3mm height, 10mm wide, 10mm length. The other one will be 10mm height and 4.35mm width and length. Okay. And this is going to be our washer. We're going to need 6 of them. I'm sorry, 8 of them, because we have 4 wheels and they need to go on both sides so they can hold our wheels in place. Okay. Gonna do the measurements for these, for this one right here. Okay, we're gonna put in our second measurements on the second cylinder. Make sure we have it all together, and we're gonna align it like we did the wheel. Create a hole so we could have a hole in the washer. So the skinnier cylinder will be the hole going in the middle of the other cylinder, and of course we have to align it, make sure everything is together. Once you align it, make sure you have it going through the whole cylinder. It's going straight through. Okay. Alright, so now you could turn the middle cylinder into a hole. Okay, looks good. Let's just double check it one more time. Okay. This look fine. Turn that into a hole. Now we're gonna group it by selecting it and group it. And we have a washer. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna make 7 more copies of that. Now we've made copies of our washers. I'm just going to change the color of the wheels, turn them all black, and we are good to go and print and pick it up from any location you would like. If you have any questions about this project or any other 3D printing questions, please reach out to our 3D printing department. Thank you.